All right, so welcome to our third Thursday in March. Oh, this year is going by quickly. We are almost at the end of the first quarter. Tonight, we're going to talk a bit about the Bay Retreat, specifically some of the improv games, and yeah, just visit about how we can use those resources in our ministries. But let's begin with prayer.
Mm.
Gracious and loving God, sometimes I think when we picture you, we picture, oh, maybe what we've seen in paintings, a stern-looking man with long flowing beard and hair who looks ready to judge us for all the things that we do and don't do. Sometimes maybe we picture you as the pictures we've seen as Jesus. But I'm not sure we often picture you as someone who laughs, who takes delight in being playful, who, as part of your creative spirit, engaged in trying things that didn't always work well. Oh, but Lord, I think if we look around in the natural world, we see your playfulness in the platypus and the giraffe and the elephant, and the colors of birds and butterflies and flowers and trees and in the immense variety of this world. I feel like you played a little bit as you were creating all these things. So help us be a little more playful. Help us bring laughter and a sense of curious exploration to our work, to what it means to follow you and be faithful. Help us maybe be a little lighter of heart so that we can join you in creative play for the good of your world and the good of your people. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Yes, amen. Yes. Mhm.
Yeah, and so that's for me part of the joy of the Bay Retreat. And Debbie was there, and Eddie had just started. He had really just arrived. Um, but part of what was so meaningful to me was just the amount of laughter that we shared
Mm.
in that time and space, and the fact that the people who came were willing to engage in play. That was really fantastic, and every time I think about the different pieces, and I remember uh, the different activities Marthame especially led us through, I laugh a little, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So tonight, I thought we would just review some of those games because when you're in the midst of playing them, it can be hard to, pay attention to the specifics and remember, how do I bring this back? Um, in fact, I've used one of the games and it didn't go very well, and I thought, what did I do wrong? And at the retreat, I was like, oh, I forgot that really important piece. That's why it didn't go very well. Oh well, I learned something and it was okay. Um, and as a prelude, before I share screen, just before we started tonight, I did send out an email with the survey for the retreat and a link to the folder with the resources from our retreat leaders. So Flo's sermons, the music from Warren, and this document from Marthame. So those went out to our retreat participants, and then the link to the resources folder will go out to everybody in the midweek. Woohoo! All right, but Marthame sent this document to help us hold on to what we learn. I'm going to move that up there. Okay. And I appreciated him giving a little intro, his own personal word. Um, that it was 9 years ago he took his first class in improv comedy, and I resonate with his sentence about overcoming the initial fears of looking foolish. I don't know about the rest of you, but that's been something I've had to work on, letting go of whether or not I'll look foolish or make a fool of myself. Because if I worry about that, I can't engage in the play. I can't engage in the fun as much. Um, and so what he learned and what he shared with us is the skills that make for good improv comedy are skills that actually help us in life and therefore in ministry. The paying attention, building trust, and then the embodiment, the embodying of our emotions, the embodying of our thoughts, the embodying of experience. Um, yeah. So why games? He answers the question for us. We need time to laugh and play. We really do. And I think one of the gifts of this retreat, as we're still, dealing with the impact of COVID, as people are still getting sick and having long-term health impact and still dying at a fairly steady rate, we're also trying to move forward into what's next. But it may have been a long time since we've gotten together and laughed and played. Uh, because it's been a pretty serious time. So for those who participated in the retreat, we had these opportunities to really guffaw, to really let loose and laugh from our bellies and laugh not at somebody, but with one another. Uh, and I think it's good for our hearts and good for our souls, as well as good for our bodies. If you've had a day of smiling a lot, you may notice that your jaw begins to ache a little bit. Well, those are muscles
Yeah.
we should use a little more often. Um,
Yeah.
and these kinds of games
Mm.
can be used for group building. I've definitely used some of these games for that purpose. But they can be used to help a group approach an issue or a question in a different way, or get unstuck. So if a session, if a board, if a study group finds that they're going around in a circle and they can't get past where they are, to step away and play a game actually gets the brain moving in a different direction, stimulates different parts of this beautiful mind we have, and then we're less stuck in where we were. So games can be helpful in shifting how we approach and think about even really serious issues of ministry. Um, yeah, so how to use them. This is a 6-page document, so he has shared games we didn't experience at the retreat, as well as the games we did, as along with these guidelines, so we can really take them and use them ourselves, being ready to laugh at our own mistakes and then laugh with the group. Um, yeah, so he's listed categories for games. He has the rules for each game. Sometimes there's a goal, sometimes there are limitations, sometimes it's how the game is played out that you pay attention to, and then the invitation to simply play, knowing that we will make mistakes and that it's okay. which is another one of the gifts of incorporating some playfulness into our life together. I've heard too many churches and sessions say, if we make a mistake, it could kill the church. And so that is such a huge weight, such huge pressure. If we do something wrong, if this doesn't work, it could kill the church. We need to let go of that, because if any organization is at a point that one wrong step could lead to the end of that organization, then there are bigger things at play than one wrong step. But also, if we can't experiment, if we can't be curious, if we can't try new things and take risks, then we end up stuck, because we can't move in any direction for the fear of perhaps moving in the wrong direction and therefore ending it all. So beginning to incorporate a tolerance for failure and risk taking, and the ability to cheer one another on in the midst of taking those risks and being exposed to the possibility and probability of failure. If we build our tolerance for that, then as churches, we're more able to say, I don't know if this is going to work, but the Spirit's moving, let's give it a try. And if it doesn't work, what did we learn? And that is this last part, that each of the games had an opportunity to process. It wasn't just a game for the game's sake, it was a game that then we were invited into reflection on. What happened? What did you notice? What helped accomplish the goal? If there was a goal, what got in the way? What can we learn from this? So if we build this kind of process into our regular ministry, into how our sessions work, into how our boards of deacons work, into how our financial finance committees work, well, perhaps we might be willing to take a few more risks for the sake of the gospel. Because that was the other thing I noticed that was so life-giving in my mind at the retreat, is we cheered each other on. One of the games we'll look at is the frog game, and it is a game set up to make you make a mistake. That the whole purpose of the game is to make a mistake. And when you make a mistake, you take a bow and everyone else cheers. And that's part of what we did at the retreat. When groups came up and presented their cheers based on the 7 joyful marks of vital congregations, we cheered them on. It didn't matter if it was a masterpiece or really simple. We cheered each other on when we engaged in the improv evening Friday night, and people volunteered not knowing what they were volunteering for. We clapped, we shouted, we cheered each other on. And so even when we were really failing or really just kind of trying to figure it out, the Spirit was one of encouragement. What if we brought that into the church? Ooh. So here are some possible games. Yeah, there are so many possibilities. A lot of these are group games. One is a pairs game, 2 people, but almost all of these can be adapted. So first, a reminder of the That's Awesome game, which we played right at the very beginning. And it's a great icebreaker, it's a great group building, and there's a lot of positivity. So stand in a circle, and you can use it to introduce one another. Say your name and say one thing about them that is true. That's the typical invitation, and that's awesome. I've used it to set the tone for a retreat. So my invitation in one place was say your name and share something you're looking forward to in this retreat. Um, and then when the person finishes, everyone else in the circle throws their arms up and yells, "That's awesome!" The invitation about saying one thing that is true is even if the one thing that is true maybe isn't so awesome, like, I'm really tired, or my car needs new brakes, or something that the response wouldn't normally be, "That's awesome." In this case, the response is still, "That's awesome." So even if we're bringing something to the group that is heavy or is you know not sunshine and some flowers, we still get affirmed, we still get an affirmation. um Yeah. And one of the things that I've noticed, and we saw it at the retreat, is when you begin a gathering, especially if it's a longer gathering over several hours or days, when you begin it with "That's awesome" or have the "That's awesome" game early on, it shows up later. So later in the meeting, later in the retreat, in the conversation, someone will respond, and I've seen it happen every time. Someone will respond by shouting, "That's awesome!" Sometimes a little sarcastically, and sometimes with full meaning. But it comes back, and it reminds everybody of the group activity. Um, yeah, and renews the energy, has been my experience. Some of what I appreciate that Marthame does is he also helps us be aware of our embodied experience. We worship an incarnate Lord who became flesh to dwell among us. And so he reminds us that standing with our arms thrown up to the sky is a power pose, and it is a way of embodying confidence, and it's also open. You're not closed off, you don't have anything crossed in front of you. It's an open pose and is therefore a symbol of trust. So even in the physicality, there is meaning. There is meaning. Yeah. uh, this next game is one that I think I've played once before. We didn't play it at the retreat. It's another kind of icebreaker getting together game. Uh, a version of it I've seen is to pick an animal that you associate with, or that you really like, and make that animal sound. But again, it's a circle game. It's a group game, and you say your name and then make a physical action to represent that name. What's a physical action to represent the name Cindy? So part of the challenge as a leader is to come up with something that maybe is bold or a large movement, so people are invited to do more than something that's small. It's like with communion, when we come up for intinction, it's not a pinch of grace. It's grace unbounded. So take a war. Huh. Same thing with this. Choose a big movement for your name. And so I'm going to invite you, if you will, to play this one with me. Some of these are hard to do on Zoom because they're like passing, but I think we can play this one. So we're going to say our name and a motion that goes with our name or associates with our name. And I'll go first. And I'm going to think for a second because I didn't plan. All right. And then after I do it, you say my name back to me and you repeat the motion. So that's part of the group building. All right. So some of the thinking is not to try to do something that someone else is going to get hurt trying to repeat, right? So I'm Cindy. Cindy! And now you say my name and you.
Cindy.
Woo! There you go. Would one of you like to go next?
I'll do it.
Okay.
All right. My name is Debbie. Bzzz.
All right, Debbie. Bzzz. All right, Eddie, you're muted, so.
Okay. Good now. Okay. So I'm Eddie.
Hey, Eddie. So
Oh my
just
You don't
imagine.
goodness.
think you should be recording this, by the way?
Well, just imagine a whole group of people doing that. And so everyone at the same time repeating your name and bzzz, or I'm not very good at that. And laughing
Yes.
and laughing.
Yeah.
And again, my experience is when you do something like this, especially if it's a retreat setting where you're going to be sharing time together, when you see one another, you remember, and
Yeah.
sometimes people will say, "Oh, you're Debbie." Bzzz.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a different way to
Thanks.
yeah, get to know one another and laugh a little bit. Yeah, there
Mm.
is a theme. Okay, thank you for playing. Um, yeah. So the next game is the word at a time story, and we did play this game. Um, and it is one word at a time, so each person gets one word. So you need a group. It doesn't work well with even three or four. It's better with a slightly larger group. Um, and you begin with once upon a time there was. And then whoever gets the word after there was, the story goes from there. But it's just one word at a time. So people only get one word. Uh, and you build the story. And the story ends with the moral of the story is if you get that far. Sometimes time is called before you get to sharing the moral of the story, but even that you're making up. And so sometimes a group will gel in a way where they're trying to create a story that builds and makes sense. And I've seen groups kind of they work with one
Okay.
another, not with any communication. They're not communicating except with the one word at a time, but they're supporting each other. And sometimes there'll be people in a group who the word they come up with is completely out of left field. Like it has nothing to do with any of the words that came before. But that's the word that came, and that's the word that was said. And so that is the word that the next person builds on. So the stories can be really nonsensical, And sometimes they can actually build something. Uh, one of the invitations is to speed up the tempo, which helps, so people aren't you know trying to think of what's the right word or the best word, but instead tr trying to keep a beat going, and whatever word comes is the word that comes. Um, and then there are ways to debrief this. What did you notice? What did that feel like? What felt good? What felt frustrating? And then to talk about the shared process of of creating the story of a church. What's the shared process of creating the story of who we are and who God is calling us to be? Yeah. Here's the one frog game, which is all about making mistakes. Uh, and so it is again a circle game uh, for, 3, 4, or more people. You can do it with a really big group, and it's a repeating game. It's a building game. So it begins with one frog. So the first person says one frog. The next person says 2 eyes. The third person says 4 legs. The fourth person says plop. And the fifth person says into the pond. And that's the sequence: frog, eyes, legs, plop, into the pond. But then the number of frogs changes, the numbers of eyes change, the numbers of legs change, and the number of plops change. So the second round is 2 frogs, 4 eyes, 8 legs, plop, plop into the pond. And this is the one where you will make a mistake. You will mess up, either because math is not your strong suit or because you forget a plop. You forget how many frogs are plop, plop, plopping into the pond. Or when we played at the retreat, Warren forgot into the pond. He went just to the next set of frogs. And when he forgot into the pond, everyone cheered and he took a bow, which is really what this is about. It's not about being a math genius. It's not about counting correctly. It's about embracing making a mistake. It's about embracing trying and messing up. And when someone messes up, you start back with one frog. You start back with one frog. Yeah. So it's a fun game to play, especially in those times and places where everyone is concentrating on, we have to get this right. We have to get this right. Okay, let's do something when we're not going to get it right. Oh, so permission walk. So yeah, we're just on page 3. Permission walk is laid out there. This is one we did not play at the retreat. One clap is a game about paying attention. We couldn't do this on Zoom because of the delay in what I do here and what you experience there, but you're trying to, by watching the physical hints, clap at the same time as your neighbor, and until you both clap at the same time, it doesn't move on. And so that's one about paying attention to one another, something that we don't always do. Zen counting.
There's a play. I forgot the name of the play, but there's a play that I saw a number of years ago. Actually, my daughter was acting in it, and the one of the exercises in the play was that all the actors will lay flat on the floor in a circle, like their heads to each other,
Mhm.
and that they will sense their the moment in which to speak without others doing the same thing. So
Yeah.
it's about really timing and feeling everyone's energy so that they could say something. But if they would trump into each other, then they will have to start all over again
Mhm.
process. So it was really quite an interesting way of uh, just feeling each other and just being patient with each other and know exactly, okay, I know I can speak now, or it's my moment, you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
And it took a while before all of them got that to be in sync with one another, you know.
And the things you pay attention to, and when there are prayers and it's opened up to the group to
Right.
share a prayer request, um, I try to listen because sometimes you can hear somebody take the breath
Hmm.
or open their mouths. Sometimes you can
Yeah.
hear the mouth opening up, or you hear a cue and you know
Mhm.
someone is about to speak. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah, yeah,
with
yeah,
your heads
exactly.
together in a circle, being able to hear those really small
Yeah.
cues, yeah. And
Mm.
that's what this next game is like. It's called Zen counting. It's very similar to what you were just describing. Um, most of these games are played with church groups who are not going to lay on the ground.
It
Because, I mean, for a lot of our
would be
church,
hard to get up.
it'd be
Yeah.
hard to get up. That's exactly right. So instead of lying down, you stand, but you have your hands, um, well, in this case, arms over each other's shoulders, which adds another layer of attention as you feel people breathe. Um, and it's counting from 1 to 21, not in order, not around the circle, but sensing where there's a space to speak the
Mhm.
next number. Yeah, yeah. Um, and Marthame notes this is a particularly calming game. So, like if you got a group of younger adults or youth, and you need to it's going to bring that energy down a little bit. Um, this could be a fun game. We did play What Else Can This Be? And you can do this in any kind of setting. You don't have to stand. You can be sitting around a table, and we're going to try it here on Zoom. And and it's really about taking any object and saying this is, and naming what it actually is, but it can also be, and then offering something else that that object could be. And then instead of just handing it to the next person, if you are like sitting at a table, you can wait until somebody reaches or indicates, I know what else it could be. And so it's a different way of taking turns. Um, so for us, uh, I thought this could be one we play because you take it when you feel led, and I'm so glad to see all of us have this prop right available. Because of course I can't hand anything through the screen to you, but these are a pair of glasses. But sometimes they act as a level when I'm hanging things on the wall.
Oh,
It doesn't have to be a real thing. What else could they be?
A lighter to start fires with.
Ooh,
what?
yes.
You'd have to have the sun, of course, but the lenses.
Nice. All right.
Oh, magnifying, like a magnifying glass. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
it's the engineer in me.
Yeah.
Okay.
What else could they
Glasses.
be?
Um,
I think I think they could be the basis for a very interesting mousetrap.
Hmm.
What else could they?
They could be a monocle.
Ooh, yeah.
Jesus.
No, they can't be that.
Okay, sorry.
No, no, they can be anything that you imagine they could be. That's part of the
Okay.
game.
Sunglasses.
Yeah. Ah. So it's an invitation to really think beyond what the thing
Yeah.
actually is, you know? It could be a kind of clothespin.
That's pretty good. Yeah. Okay.
And so that's something you could do at a session meeting, at any kind of meeting, if you're feeling like there's no energy, that you're going in a circle, to pick
Mm.
up something that's on the table and say, this is, what else could it be? And it could be
Right.
anything. Like I've got all kinds of weird stuff here at my desk. Um, It could be anything. It could be a pen. We played it at the retreat. The leadership ended up eating lunch together, and Marthame, out of the blue, picked up the cloth napkin and said, "This is a napkin, but it could be a very fancy hat." And he put it
Yeah.
on his head, and I said, "Or," and I took it from him, "it could be a kite." And and so
Yeah.
around the table, we started passing this napkin back and forth, and it was all kinds of things. It was all kinds of things that had nothing to do with being a napkin. And we were laughing by very quickly playing that
Mm.
game, but also imagining what
Yeah.
else could this be? This is a book. What else could it be? What else could it be? It could be a treasure
Yeah.
map. What else could it be? Yeah. So that's
Mm.
a particular game. Oh, we're almost out of time. Huh. Three Changes is a paying attention game. So that's a pair game where you decide who's going to go first, and then you turn back to back, and the person who's going first changes three things about their appearance. And when they're done, you turn back, and the other person has to see if they notice. So
Mm.
it's a noticing game. Jinx, Silent Line, look at this. Zoom, and this was the last one I wanted to be sure that we touched on because we played this one at the retreat, and it's another fantastic game if we're stuck in a negative energy place, if we're stuck with we can't do that, you know, the famous words of the church, we've never done it that way. We've always done it this way. This no but yes and game can be a way to shift energy. And so the first round is no but. Two people again, and one person proposes something to do. Let's go on a picnic. And the other person has to reply no, but offer something else. Even if they want to go on a picnic, even if they want to do the what has been suggested, they have to say no, but. So you do that for a little while and notice the energy when it's always no, but, no, but, no, but. Then take a breath and play now yes and. Same thing, offer an activity. So let's go on a picnic. And the second person says yes and makes another suggestion. And let's bring a fantastic picnic basket. Yes. And let's stop and get one of those roast chickens. Yes. And let's be sure we have a blanket to sit on in the grass. Yes. And let's go to that park where we can sit near the river. Yes. And so you see how you build on the activity, which really changes the energy. When
Mhm. Mhm.
everything is responded to with a yes, and it opens up what is possible.
Mhm.
So he ends this resource with the theological principles around improv comedy, and then some additional resources here. Uh,
Mm.
Now you are equipped to try and fail at times playing improv games with the groups that you interact with.
Can
Thoughts?
we do that in worship?
Sure. So here's the story. I was invited to lead a women's retreat for one of our churches here in the presbytery, and had them start off with "That's awesome," and then for the next 24 hours, they were yelling "That's awesome" at different points of the retreat. But part of what they said as we were getting close to finishing was, we need to bring that back to the church. And I said, okay, how are you going to do that? I want a plan. I want to hear how you're going to do it. And so they were thinking about how they could bring "That's awesome." And I happened to know that the church was having their annual meeting and voting on the pastor's terms of call for the next budget cycle. And I said, well, maybe that's a place that when the pastors, because in that church, the pastors leave for that part of the conversation. It's not required, but it is often a tradition. I said, when the pastors come back in, maybe that's how you greet them. That's awesome. And I asked the pastors later, uh, did the women bring anything back from the retreat? And they did. The very next day in worship, they introduced the congregation to "That's awesome." Yeah, why
Well,
not?
did I tell you about how I used it that Sunday morning in church?
Mm-mm.
Oh, I remembered that I challenged the church, the congregation before we left with a challenge of to give me to lend for Lent. So we have the food boxes set up outside our church. And I said, okay, lend for Lent. I said, I'm challenging you to bring me 100 pounds of food for the baskets out there for after Lent. I said, and we'll see how we do. And I came back from the retreat, and I got my little scale out, and I was out in the church, and I was weighing everything because I like to give them a total every week. Well, lo and behold, the first week, I was like, oh my gosh, they've got 102.9 pounds of food here. So
Fantastic.
I boxed it up, and then that Sunday, I got up to do the announcement, and I told him, I said, I said, you guys are just the best. I said, I just love you guys, every one of you. I said, but we're not finished. You still got to lend for Lent. And right before I got finished, I mean, I was up where Pastor Hillary stands, and I threw my arms up in the air and I said, you guys are great, and that's awesome.
That is
Well,
awesome.
yeah, my congregation's kind of used to me doing things that are not typical. But Hillary was sitting behind me and she just rolled laughing.
Good. Good. Awesome.
But yeah, I do it all the time now.
Ah, okay. Ah,
Keeps them energized.
well,
Yes.
and there will be ways to invite them into that too. So it's not just
Yeah.
um, if they begin to learn that that's something you're going to bring, then
Yep.
you can start inviting them. Join with me. That's
Oh
awesome.
yeah. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm, mm.
It's all about playfulness. Yeah.
Yeah.
Playfulness.
Oh, it
Yeah.
is. Not taking yourself too serious all the time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, which I think gives the spirit a little more room to move.
Indeed. It sure does.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it
Oh.
does. Yeah.
So that's awesome.
That's awesome.
Goalpost.
Woohoo!
Goalpost.
So, in April, our third Thursday in April, which is April 20th. Yep. We are launching a new website at the end of this month. And we are launching it fully knowing that it will not be perfect or even fully prepared. So, one frog, two eyes. Um, but for our April third Thursday, I'm going to do a tour of the new website so we can take a look at where things are, how you access things, get a sense of what's there, and you can give me feedback. That doesn't make any sense. And this is a website where we have immense control. So we can move things really easily. We can change language. So this will be both a feedback session and an introduction session. So that'll be April
That be
20th.
Cindy?
Hmm?
The 20th.
Yeah. So
Same time, right?
third Thursday, 5 p.m. Yes. And same link.
Okay.
But I will be more prompt in sending out the notice about the April. I will wait. Actually, I won't wait till after Easter because, yeah. Anyway, that notice will go out to everybody soon, next week. So thank you for coming tonight and being willing to play a little bit.